All right. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Everybody have a good week? Huh? It is getting so laid back here. I love it. I love it. You know, we've kind of pushed through all the kooky people saying all the kooky stuff, and it's amazing. You know how people. You know, we live in Anza for a reason, because it's all live and let live. But some people really struggle with that if you choose to have a few different ideas than that. You know, that all of a sudden it's like, oh no, that's not allowed. You know, live and let live works everywhere except in religion. In religion, live and let live is not in the vocabulary. It's a 007 song. It's live and let die, right? That's just the way it is. Just leave it, baby. Just let it ring. Yeah. No, it's okay. It's all right. I like my grandfather clock. Anybody got anything they need to share this morning? Want to share this morning? Keep Penny in your prayers. I was kind of hoping she'd be here this morning so we could pray for her. Well, she went to the doctor and she found out she has an enlarged heart. And I was kind of hoping she'd come here this morning so that we could do a little healing prayer for her. But that's all right. We will hunt her down, and it will happen. It will happen. Now, those kind of things are going to happen more and more, and it's important. My daughter the other day was in her. Can I share? Thank you. She was in her room on Wednesday, and we were at the end of our meditation. We say Om Shalom, Amen. Okay. And she was fighting a headache, and she says, "You know, Daddy, when you guys started saying that, my headache went away." So we officially had our first healing. Hey, you women know a headache can be a big deal. Okay, a headache can be one of those things that can put you down for quite some time. And maybe you should have come that night. Yes, we would have focused some time on that, some time and some energy, because we are going to move into the spaces that God is opening up for us, and we're not going to ask permission. We're past permission. You know, we're just going to do where it is we feel led to go, and that's just the way it's going to be. And we are going to meet tonight. Do we still want to meet tonight? Or you want to put off one more Sunday night for the book? I'm all right. One more Sunday night for the book. Are you ready for tonight? Talk to me, Mary.
I don't have a copy of that book anymore, but I also have company.
Okay. All right. Yes, next Sunday, but next Sunday for sure. No backing out. No. Okay. All right.
And what's the name of the book?
The Alchemist.
The Alchemist.
The Alchemist. Okay. It's a great story. It's a great story. You'll like it. I have a song this morning that I'd like to play, and it's by a gentleman by the name of Alexei Murdoch. Alexei Murdoch. And there's a refrain in it that has been in my. You know, you get a little simple line from a song, and it begins to kind of possess your thinking, and there's a line in this song that says, "May the grace of God be always in your heart." Right? And then when you realize that you are part of something beautiful. You see, grace does not save you from who you are. Grace saves you from who you think you are. So the biggest thing is that you allow grace to teach you who you are, because the systems of men would prefer you think you're something different, because then you need to go to them to get absolution or whatever the structures are. Today we're going to take a little time and we're going to look at Psalm 8 today. So are we ready for some music? And it's pretty much repetitive. It's more like a chant. A chant. Of course, I like chants. I will. You're relaxed already? You need to come on Wednesday nights.
May the grace of God be with you always in your heart. May you know the truth inside you from the start. May you find the strength to know you are right. Part of something beautiful. May the grace of God be with you always in your heart. May you know the truth inside you from the start. May you find the strength to know out of something beautiful. May the grace of God be with you always in your heart. May you know the truth inside you from the start. May you find the strength to know out of something beautiful. May the grace of God be with you always in your heart. May you know the truth inside you from the start.
It's even better when you can feel it.
Out of something beautiful, and I know that I saw a light shine, thought I saw a light shine. Yes, I know that I saw a light shine. Make me see a light shine now. May the grace of God be with you always in your heart. May you know the truth inside from the start. May you find the strength to know you are out of something beautiful. May the grace of God be with you always in your heart. May you know the truth inside from the start. May you find the strength to know you are out of something beautiful. And I know that I saw a light shine. I thought I saw a light shine. Yes, I thought that I saw a light shine. I thought I saw a light shine. Yes, I thought that I saw a light shine. Yes, I from the corner of my eye, thought I saw a light shine. From the corner of my eye, thought I saw a light shine. From the corner of my eye, thought I saw a light shine. From the corner of my eye, thought I saw a light shine. From the corner of my eye, thought I saw a light shine. From the corner of my eye, thought I saw a light shine. From the corner of my eye, thought I saw a light shine. From the corner of my eye, thought I saw a light shine. From the corner of my eye, thought I saw a light shine. From the corner of my eye, thought I saw a light shine. From the corner of my eye, thought I saw a light shine. From the corner of my eye, thought I saw a light shine.
Amen. Right. You guys are beautiful. Did you know that? You're beautiful. And you're part of something beautiful. All right. Open your, if you brought your Bibles, you can open to Psalm 8. Psalm 8. Let's talk about it today. I want to start with a passage from Genesis 1. Don't start your spiritual life in Genesis 3. There's a reason why Genesis starts in 1 and not 3. Right? It starts in Genesis 1. And Genesis 1:31 in the Message says this. God looked over everything he had made. Everybody say, God made me.
God made me.
And it was so good. So very good. All right? We can say that together. God looked over everything he had made. And it was so good. So very good. Right? It was beautiful. It was beautiful. And you are beautiful. And that's what you need to know. And you've had enough of the you're not. Haven't you had enough of that? I mean, there's not like there's a little bit of that running around in the world. There's not like it's a little bit of, you're everything but. Right? And you're striving, and You think grace is going to turn you from this thing that you think you are, and you're not. You're good. Now, if you can show me a verse, and you're welcome to do that, where God rescinded this, then I'll buy your thing of starting at the bad spot. You have to find me a verse that rescinds this proclamation that God made concerning his creation and concerning his highest creation. Because you're good. You're beautiful. And you're part of something beautiful. So, Psalm 8. Psalm 8, David here. You know, I like David because David's a man after God's own heart, and yet he's a rascal. He's a rascal, and God digs him. You ever noticed who God picks in the Bible? He never picks the religious people that are recorded in the Bible. Did you notice that? Always the prophets and the people that God sends are always being fought by the religious people in the book. And then who thinks they own the book? The religious people think they own the book. Isn't it crazy? God writes a book, smack, smack, it ain't about you. And then they take the book and say it's theirs. And it's all about their view. Their view. What's their view? That you start bad. They start in Genesis 3. Well, we don't do that. We start in Genesis 1. That's how I was taught to read a book. Now, there are times, I will admit it, when I read the jacket or I read the end of something. And I do like my Blu-ray now that I can just skip over chapters in a movie that are irrelevant. Now, that's the world we live in today. People will just skip over sections that don't apply to them. And so that's what we do when we study other people's spiritual histories. Sometimes we say, well, you know, that doesn't really apply to me. I mean, it's a great story and all that, but I don't find a reference point for where I am in my life and where I'm headed. It doesn't resonate. So you just keep reading. You'll find something that resonates. Psalm 8. Lord, our Lord, or actually it would say Adonai. Adonai. Adonai is the word that Jews used because they didn't want to say the Yahweh. So instead they would say Adonai. Of course, there are no vowels in Hebrew, so how majestic is your name in all the earth. You have set your glory in the heavens. Through the praise of children and infants, you have established a stronghold against your enemies. God says that the truth is in innocence and it's simple to understand. And it's designed that way for a reason. Because it confounds the people that want to make it complicated and control it. I just can't handle it. You know, how dare it just be about God loving us and us being beautiful? How dare it be that simple? Well, I will tell you, I raised a child that way, and I've raised some children that way, and it works. Daughter, does it work? It works. Oh, you know, do you have to discipline? I met a lady last week, and she kept wanting to talk about discipline. And I said, well, it sounds to me like you still have some angst in your own life. Are you sure you're separating out your struggles and your lack of peace in your life isn't reflected in your discipline? And maybe you're just screaming at yourself by the way you're treating other people. Does that make sense? It happens because we lack this unity of being, spirit, soul, and body. And so then we find ourselves, and you're screaming at that person, but you're really screaming at yourself. You are just screaming at yourself, and the thing is, nobody's really listening, right? Because you need to move into a different way of thinking about things. And so here, he says, to silence the foe and the avenger, because God's not into vengeance. It says, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. And that's just to get you to chill out. You know, you ever talk to someone and they're all worked up and you just say, look, I'll take care of it. It doesn't mean you're going to do it the way they want you to do it. You're just trying to get them to chill out. You say, I'll take care of it. Sometimes a situation will arise and I'll tell my daughter, I'll take care of it. And I go online and I do this and I take care of it. I don't take, you know, and so that's all that means. Vengeance is mine, says the Lord. It's just God saying, I'll take care of it. Leave it alone. Right? When I consider your heavens, now the song guys sing, when I consider your heavens, the work of your fingers, and the moons and the stars, what is mankind that you are mindful of them? Now, of course, he's a man, so he is stuck in a way of thinking about God that's very sacrifice-based, right? A way of thinking about God that's all about your failures and who you're not. A way of thinking about God that always makes you think about the law and being guilty. And so David is just as stuck as the rest of us. Right? And he's expressing it. He says, what is man mindful that you are mindful of them? Human beings that you care for them. Yours say, or the Son of Man. Whose scriptures say, or the Son of Man? What is man that thou art mindful of him, or the Son of Man? That's referring to Adam, which also spiritually is referring to the last Adam, which is Christ, who is the true image of what the first Adam actually was before he kind of fell into a deception of self, a deception of his own ego, of his own pomposity. You need to be that because he was already that. You understand? It's funny when you're already something and you're trying to work hard to be what you already are. What are you doing, Pastor? I'm trying to be Bill. And you say, why are you trying? I'm trying to be Bill. And someone comes on and says, hey, can I tell you a secret? You already are Bill. No, but I was taught I have to try to be Bill. No, you just got to relax and be who you are. And then you begin to learn who you are. How many are still in that process of learning who you are, right? And all the potential in who that is. You know, it's fun. One of the beauty things of being a pastor is you get to watch people on their journey, because sometimes you don't notice how much you've changed. Because you're on the inside and it looks like not much is going on, right? Because you judge your progress, you judge it too harshly. There's a lot going on, and one of the beauties of being a pastor is watching people evolve spiritually. Watching situations change. That's powerful. Watching families come into a different kind of synthesis, right? And people understanding that the person who's the head actually understanding what that really means and what the idea of authority really means. And then beginning to move into those. And then you begin to see have an effect on people. I'm amazed at how many people are approaching me. They're still quite not brave enough to follow their heart. But they're getting there. They're still not quite courageous enough. Because it's always easier to tell the story that you've been telling yourself for a long time. He says, we're human beings, that you care for them. You have made them a little lower than angels, and that's wrong. You have made them lower than yourself. Now, I understand why the translators, it says Elohim there in the Hebrew, and I know why the translators don't want you to think, because you might get puffed up. You might get puffed up if you realize you're higher than angels and just a little lower than God. That might puff you up. It won't. So what they do is they convince you you're lower than angels. Oh, you're lower than demons. You're just a worm. That's it. Sinners in the hands of an angry God. Oh, what a waste of a sermon. I mean, it worked, but it worked and scared a bunch of people into his church. So, and you just keep telling a story long enough, I can dominate a child really quick. The hardest thing to do is to be trusted with a soul and not crush them. And you might even have them for a while, but then they're going to resent you. They get a certain age and they're out of Dodge, man, and there's resentment and all the ramifications that come with that resentment. And so a lot of people resent God. And I went through that phase where I was like, look, you made me this way, and now you're mad at me, going to send me to hell? Who do you think you are? Now I ask questions like that because I'm made in his image, so I'm a creator. I'm a person that asks questions. I know that gets me in trouble, but I don't know how else to live my life but to explore and ask questions. I just don't say yes, master, very well. And anyway, I'm a child of God. I'm not a slave. That's what Galatians taught me. So he says, it isn't me. Okay. You've made them lower than yourself, and you crowned them with glory and honor. You made them rulers over the works of your hands. Forget this thing that the devil's in charge of the earth. That's just a theology. Forget that. The devil is not in charge of the earth. It belongs to us. When are we going to get it? When you take it back, it's yours already. It's like your life. It's yours already. When are you going to take it back? When are you going to stop being a victim? It's yours already. When are you going to stand in the fullness of who you are? Because then grace is available. And grace isn't intimidated by a little puny bit of darkness in you. Ooh, big deal. Have you not heard that light shines in the darkness? Oh, but God's intimidated by your past? Please. Most of your past is because people didn't help you. They didn't help you, right? Because they didn't know how to help themselves. You understand? Broken people don't make well people. Broken people make broken people. You see, this is what it means by the sins of the father goes down. It doesn't mean God, it's a figure of speech. It means broken parents, broken kids. Okay? Oh, broken grandparents, broken kids, broken grandchildren. Amen? But the beauty of this is, at any time, you can begin to get a grasp of who you are and then begin to move very effectively, because love covers a multitude of past mistakes. And you can begin to move very powerfully and in a short period of time, not only compensate for this is why sometimes people are better grandparents than parents. Hey, you didn't know squat when you were in your 20s and 30s. You were just barely, oh my goodness, you were drowned in half the time. You had to take a breath, and now you're supposed to be like the sage and the wisdom of all things, and you messed up, but you did the best you could. You know, I wish I was a better, bigger brother, but I was working through my own angst. So sometimes I'd just smack them. No, I didn't. I never hit the girls. My little brother Joe, if you're watching, I'm so sorry. And I've told you this many times. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But we have a great relationship now, right? Just in case you're watching, brother. And that's way better than sorry anyway. Do move positively into love is way better than sacrifice. Sacrifice again. Sacrifice again. I'm tired of that system. Tired of it. God put everything under your feet, all flocks, herds, animals, birds, fish, everything that swims. How majestic is your Father. All right? Go to Romans 5. Turn to Romans 5. Romans 5:2. Romans 5:2. Jesus is God's grace embrace of the entire human race. So here we are, standing tall in the joyful bliss of our redeemed innocence. God says, I know you guys worked hard. You've been trying to work hard to make me happy with you, and you developed all these systems, and as long as you obey, and the dress isn't too long, and this isn't too, and you don't use foul language, you don't drink, you don't smoke. That's not what it's about. Don't you hate it when you're in a relationship with someone, you're always on pins and needles because you know they're watching you? You can't call that love. It's actually prison. You know what I'm saying? It's actually prison. He says, we are God's dream come true. May the grace of God be with you always in your life, right? May you know that you are a part of something beautiful. It is hard to retrain the mind. That is why the scriptures speak of renewing the mind. Capture your mind, and then you begin to have certain liberties. Now, the fact that other people, it doesn't really matter that other people don't want to give it a shot. It's really irrelevant. You just go where you're supposed to go. He says, we are God's dream come true. This was God's idea all along. Our blissful boasting in him remains uninterrupted in times of trouble. We know that pressure reveals patience. Tribulation does not have what it takes to nullify what hope knows that we have. I get so excited as I begin to watch the progress of people, and even our little Wednesday night meditations are moving in a really, in a very nice direction. Uncontrolled, completely uncontrolled, which is what where it's going to remain. And as love and grace begins to unfold, it's one of those things. You want to lose it? Try to control it. Oh, and you really want to go crazy? Try to control it in somebody else's life. That's kabonkers. Nothing more insufferable than someone that's given something up. Oh, they gave up drinking or smoking or coffee or something, and, sometimes you just want to say, just go have a cup of coffee, please. Please, help us here. He says, patience proves legal tender, which buys more positive expectation. Like the old saying goes, you got to fake it till you make it. But if God be for you, who can be against you? Oh, but they will be against you. Oh, that's a guarantee. That's a guarantee. Right? The first thing, if you're not against you, that's a wonderful place to be. Let's just work on that. If you aren't against you, now how many can understand that besides Pastor? If you are not against you, wow, that's a power play there. If we can just come to a place of this bliss, this understanding, and you are not against you. You made a little mistake, and you look at yourself and you go, it's okay. And a part of you says, where's the whip? Beat me, beat me, beat me. No, I don't beat myself anymore. Oh, you might fall into sin. I already did the other way. Beating me didn't help. I still fell into it beating me, so I figured maybe I need to love me a little bit. There's that scene from, I think it's a 007 movie, and the guy that's looking for him to kill him is from behind him, and so he has his hands like this, and he pretends, and the guy thinks he's actually loving somebody, but he's actually just hugging himself, and when the guy passes, he goes like that, and you realize he was just loving himself. I don't remember what movie that's from, but it's there somewhere, filed in the memory banks. You know how that works, right? He says, this kind of hope does not disappoint. The gift of the Holy Spirit completes our every expectation and ignites the love of God within us like an artesian well to pour out. The Holy Spirit is an outpouring, not an inpouring. There's nothing out there. What you need is in here. Where do you think, when we played that song, it's hard for you to think this way because you're trained in a dualistic way of thinking. When we played that song and something's going on in the room, where's that coming from? Don't you know that you're just a little lower than God? Where's all that beauty coming from? I'll tell you where it's coming from. Wherever two or more are gathered in my name. Where's it coming from? It's not coming from out there. It's not coming from me to you. It's coming from all of us to all of us, from within all of us, and then it's from, as the song goes, from within to without to within. And it becomes these kinds of, if we could see, if energy could be seen, we would be sharing. See, churches practice this, but a lot of times what happens is it becomes the truth of it gets lost in the mechanics of it. Now, I used to go to churches and the people would say, Amen. I remember preaching one time in LA. I'm not one of the, I don't know who, maybe my wife is the only person that was here at and it was really threw me off because I went to a church where there was no participation, white people. So, here's how white people look at you while you're teaching. You don't know what's going on. Do they think you're full of it? Yeah, no. I can't wait for this. God, when's this going to be over? You have no idea what's occurring. You are completely lost. But there it was like, amen, brother. Preach it, pastor. Go, pastor. And so what it is I don't believe that waiting for God is what we're supposed to be doing. I don't believe waiting for a rescue is our mission. I believe that it's from within me, and it begins to, you see, and together we are more. This is why we fellowship, because the sum total of all of us together is greater than our individuality, which is what Paul teaches about the body before we made it into some kind of structure. You see, it's not a pyramid. It's a field of flowers. Understand? One of the ladies in our meditation, she was sharing, and she said, while we were meditating, I was all of a sudden in a field of flowers. And I went through the flowers, and there was a clearing in the middle. And God was there at a table. Invited me to sit down. I said no, that I wasn't worthy to sit down. I said, cool, because that's a teaching, right? God is revealing something to her about her inner journey. And yet there is yet healing, not judgment, healing. You see, when we don't come to God on the basis of some kind of sacrificial mentality, then you come because you got a boo-boo, daddy, boo. You realize, who do you go to, right? That's how it's supposed to be. That is the true parental picture. Right? The true parental picture is, you got it, right? See, the word of God is sharper, and you see the idea is not the log in your eye, but the fact that the work of the Spirit is this very delicate healing work, which never gets accomplished if we judge each other. Right? And as long as we don't judge each other, we can survive in a world full of judgers. Because you don't need many people love you crazy to really make some serious progress in your life. But you do need some people love you like crazy. Right? You got to have a few. You get a few people love you like crazy, hoo-yah. That is serious progress in your spiritual life, in your interior life. Now, first you got to let people love you like crazy. And so she wouldn't sit at the table. All right. But we're making progress, you see? Because every Wednesday when we meet and she continues this interior journey, the real you, all covered up in there, right? We get the dust of the earth off of us, right? It says, God's timing was absolutely perfect. Humanity was at their weakest when Christ died their death. They were in their weakest. Oh, but the Jews thought they were at their strongest. They were at their height. Why? They had the temple, which just been finished being built. It was beautiful. It was gorgeous. All the ceremonies in full swing. All the schools of theology, all the thought, all the pomp and circumstance. You were at your weakest. What did they think they were at? Their strongest. They thought they were at their strongest. They were waiting for the Messiah to come and whoop everybody. Top of the world, Ma! Right? They were doing their James Cagney impression. They were so certain they were nuts. That's what happens, by the way. Have you experienced any of that? They're so certain, they're crazy. That's what happens. That's how you fly a plane into a building for God. That's how you do it. You're so certain you're nuts. You're crazy. It's amazing. And, to try to get them, there's going to come a time where we're going to move in a space where when they came to get Jesus, it's recorded. They asked him and he said, I'm he. And I believe he just said it in the most calmest, and it was like it bowled them over. Once we finally just abandon all of it, realize who we are, begin to walk in the quiet strength of just that song where nobody in here was singing. You all had your eyes closed. You were meditating. How cool was it? Right? And no matter where you were within that space, no matter how comfortable you've come, because it's scary to go inside. I'll tell you what, because you're not sure you like that person. You've been told to distrust that person. A person's heart is deceitfully wicked above all things. Oh, you just can't get that verse out of your head, can you? Because it was put in there for a purpose. You think all scriptures that are quoted out of the mouth of people are said for your spiritual benefit? Or are they said for their spiritual control over you? Oh, now they will say, oh, no, they only want what's best for you. Have a seat. Have a seat. And you will watch as it is unraveling for some people right now. It is unraveling so fast and they don't know what to do. See, God's timing is perfect. When they thought they were everything, and God says, you already were, you didn't need all this stuff. Jesus says, you don't need these buildings. They said, the apostles looked at Jesus and said, oh, look at this. Hoo-yah. Jesus said, tear it down, 3 days, back up. Oopty. Yeah. So he's thinking, okay, the Christ there. Yeah, like he's thinking universes and galaxies, and you're all excited about a building somewhere. It's like, yeah, this is small time, people. I was kind of at some rather larger creative events than this. I got a little bit, but I know you get excited about such simple things. Yes, it's beautiful stained glass. It is so wonderful. It is so pretty. He says, it is most unlikely that someone will die for another man, even if he's righteous. Yet is it remotely possible that someone can brave such devotion that he would actually lay down his life in an effort to save the life of an extraordinary good person. Herein is the extremity of God's love gift. Mankind was rotten to the core. Now what that means is that their thinking was bad. They were at the height of their religious, God could not suffer them any longer. They were at the height of their self-righteousness, at the height of their theology, and they were insufferable. And they had all the organizations and who was in and who was out and who's going here and who's going there. And God said, you're at your lowest point when you are in that kind of pride base. You are at your lowest point spiritually, even though they're all patting each other on the back. Right? And so Jesus, in order to reveal the absolute vanity of a life, of a spiritual life that you think you're living out here and totally neglecting the inner life. So Christ just died for the insanity of all that. He said, go ahead, do it to me. You might as well. You want to do it anyway, right? You're not going to change. Okay, and so what is set back? Everything is set back. What do you mean, Pastor? The transformation of the earth, the people laying down their weapons. So what do? More war. Reminds me of that Twilight Zone where the guy captured the devil. And so there's this guy in a Bavarian town. And he's very sick and ill, and so he's put up in a hermitage, and he hears this noise. Oh! And so he goes downstairs, and it's like a dungeon kind of thing, and there's a guy on the other side. Look, hey, could you help me? Let me out. And He said, what's that? Oh, Brother Lawrence has locked me up down here. And so Brother Lawrence comes down, and Brother Lawrence says, well, that's the devil. And Brother Lawrence says, you know, there's been a lot of peace since we've set aside all the insanity that see the devil as a mindset, as a way of thinking about how we dominate and control other people. And so eventually he goes back down, and the devil talks to him, and he's talking to the devil, because if you don't talk to the devil doesn't exist. You understand? Don't let people teach you about demons and devils. It's a waste of time. You're lower than God, and the devil's under you. You know what I'm saying? Oh. And so all that is locking him in there is a staff, a walking stick. And it's like this across the outside of and the guy could reach out and grab it. And he says, why don't you reach out and grab it? He says, oh, I don't have enough strength. Well, it's that power of love that's represented in the staff. And so he lets the devil out, and we have World War I and World War II. And then he spends the rest of his life trying to capture the devil, you see. Because people, it's almost like they would prefer that to living up to your responsibility as sons and daughters of the living God. He says, herein God loves so much that he just came in the midst of our ridiculousness. In the midst of the height of our religion was at our lowest point spiritually. Now, sometimes you have to go through certain religious exercises in your journey. You go through things. You get excited. You're looking for a key. We're all looking for a key. We all want to move towards genuineness. We all want to know the deep things of God. We have that longing to get back to source, to get back to parent, to get back to origins, back to the garden, as Dave Mason's song goes. Back to the garden again. Back. We want to get back. We miss it. You miss your mother's home cooking. You miss it. You can't explain it, but you know you're more than you've been told. If God could love us that much when we were ungodly and guilty, how much more are we free to realize his love now that we are declared innocent by his blood? God does not love us more now that we are reconciled to him. We are now free to realize how much he loved us all along. You see, Jesus' religious contemporaries were lying to the people in order to keep them under control, and Jesus was saying, they're lying to you. I've come to set you free. From what? From all that bad training. Why? Because the world is waiting to be transformed. Jesus is coming again, but he's coming first in us having a new awareness about who we are and what our responsibilities are. What are your creative responsibilities, brother? Right? Or shall you remain guilty? What you need is that you need to become innocent of all that stuff. But remember when you were a child and you didn't have, and it wasn't that complicated? Hopefully you had a little bit of time in your life where you were a child before everybody messed with your head. Huh? We'll close here in we'll close in Ephesians. Ephesians 3:14. Overwhelmed, Paul speaking here, overwhelmed by what grace communicates, I bow my knees in awe before the Father. Grace is like the whisper that comes up behind you and tells you the truth, whispers the truth about you over and over and over again to you. And the more you have been bound up in the lies and performance, and maybe badness, maybe whatever it is, and grace is that one true friend that comes and whispers a hopeful thought. Because you don't need a lot. A hopeful thought. May the grace of God be with you always in your life. Just one, you don't need, boy, I tell you what, a simple truth embraced completely, you now move into dynamic faith. You want to talk about starting to create things? Starting to move in a different space? And we already got the 2 or more part down. Amen? We got the 2 or more part. We're good on that. So, whoa, what's left? Everything. What's ahead of us? Everything. But first, you got to get your mind right. All right, we're having a cool hand Luke moment here. You got to get your mind right. It has to be renewed. And no, renewed is not the same thing as indoctrinated. Some of us are just coming out of indoctrination. Say amen. If you don't confess it, you won't possess it. You're just coming out of indoctrination. Now, not by me. Hopefully on Sunday mornings I wasn't trying to indoctrinate you. But, you know, I began to realize someone was indoctrinating our children. And I'm going to move. Okay. Well, Lord, how am I going to do? What are we going to do here? This is not renewal. See, renewal never stops. That's why it's from faith to faith. Why? Because faith isn't fixed. It wasn't fixed until they got their hands on it. Faith was fixed when Jesus came. Look at the temple. They said, ooh, of the high priest, the red heifer. Ooh, yeah, we got it all. You got it all. You got the heifer. You know you got it. Oh, pastor's in the groove this morning. I'll move on. Overwhelmed by what grace communicates, I bow my knees in awe before the Father. Every family in heaven and on earth originates in him. That's my daddy, by the way. My dad, I don't care what you say you think you know about my relationship. I'll tell you what, in my earthly father, you can tell me nothing about my relationship with him. There is nothing you can tell me. Nothing. You could never convince me of a thing that I knew for certain that he and I had. Now, it might not have been able to be expressed. You could, baby? Could anybody ever convince you? Never. Now that is faith. Everything else is belief. And that's the difference between faith and belief. You need to move out of belief. Step into faith. He says, his is mankind's family name, and he remains the authentic identity of every nation. I desire for you to realize what the Father always envisioned for you, so that you may know the magnitude of his intent and be dynamically reinforced in your inner being by the Spirit of God. Dynamically reinforced. It is a thing that is beyond intellect, the scriptures say. These things are beyond reasoning. They are a deeper knowing than that. Right. That's why if the song Tumbling Tumbleweed goes, you're in a different space. Am I right? Because you move. See, unity, oneness, is a whole different animal. It does not require external things. It requires my internal mixing with yours, and then because God's in you, God's in me. Maybe you don't know the extent to which God is in you because you still have this mindset of guilt. And you're reminded of it all the time because, almost every Sunday you can go somewhere and tell you how bad you are. I had a lady, she doesn't have the courage yet. I met her last week for breakfast at an undisclosed location. And she says, I am so tired of being told how terrible I am. It is so old. I said, you hear something different, huh? There's a different sound resonating. She says, yes, but, and I know, honey, but this person, but that person, but this friend, but that person, I know. Let's get together every now and then. You can watch our videos, you can sneak watch them. No one's around. Maybe sneak out on a Wednesday night. She says, oh, no, I don't do that meditation stuff. That's too much. You've gone too far there, but I love you. But you've just gone too far on meditation on Wednesday night. And I heard you say Om, Shalom. I heard you say Om. And then I said, yeah. And yet, honey, and yet you are here talking to me. Right. So what's occurring here? what's occurring is that people are being stirred in their spirits. Well, stay true to love. Stay true to it. Stay in our space. Now and we move forward. Present into the future. We'll just keep little steps at a time. Just keep exploring love within ourselves. Mostly you have to begin to explore in here. Right? It's not that scary. The only monsters in there are the ones you put, or the ones other people put in there for you. We can get rid of those. It's easy. You know how powerful an evil thought is, or a Satan thought? You just resist it and it goes away. What kind of power is that? All you do is resist it and it leaves.
Hi there, and welcome to Reflections with Rhonda Jones. And Monica Livingston is in the house today, as usual. She's got the hair blowing, the dramatic effect. She insisted to have that today, or she would not fulfill her contract of being up here. So she's turned into quite a diva, I must say. And then we have our steady eddies over here. These women, Ruthie Wyburn and Kimberly Johnson, steady, no demands. They show up, they do what they're told. Nice and kind.
I start my lessons Monday with them.
Well,
I'll have a quarter today, so you can quit.
that's right. Well, this is Ruthie's last show for about a month or so. If you've been watching the show, she's going to be out of town to the great state of Idaho, and we're going to miss her, but we have a marvelous panelist that will be joining us, Kathy Willems. You've been introduced to her earlier, a couple months back, and so she's looking forward to it. Ruthie's looking forward to leaving, and we're looking forward to Ruthie coming back.
Right. I was going to say, we're just looking forward to her coming back.
That's true. But we hope she has a great time. Okay, we promised last week, we said that we would bring you a show that highlights women who kill their children in the name of religion. Or I can't say it's 100% in the name of religion, because it's like the chicken and the egg, which came first. I don't know sometimes if women are crazy, and then when they hear something religious or about God or the Antichrist, that makes it worse on them, or did they hear that first and then become crazy? Maybe some of them aren't even deemed insane. They're just, labeled a murderer because I guess they're mean as the Dickens. I'm not sure. But we're going to bring you some instances and tell you about these women and their crimes. And next week we're going to get into more of the psychology behind it and more analysis of it. This week we'll be just giving you information. We're going to tell you the woman, her crime, and why she said she did it. Next week we'll not bring in some psychologists, but we have some information from psychologists who dealt with these women, people on the fringe that they've made assertions about these women. So I'm going to tell you about one first, and next week we are going to have the video of this. And I will tell you, the video of this actual killing is gruesome, not by way of blood and guts that you can see, but just the chilling fact that you will watch a mother shoot her son in the head. And what chills me to the bone is what leads up ahead of it. They go to a shooting range, and you think, how benign is that? You and your child, 20-year-old child, you go to a shooting range and you're going to do target practicing, things that they've done before. And then, lo and behold, like everything's fine, she's smiling, she's, laughing, joking with the child. And I say child because to me a 20-year-old boy is still a child. She gets behind him with her gun, pulls the trigger, and shoots him dead. Then backs up out of the camera sight and puts the gun in her mouth and ends her life. Now, you've heard me say this many times before. If you're going to do it, I wish you would just kill yourself first. Reverse the order. Don't kill your child first, then yourself. Do everybody a favor. Do yourself first. Let the child live. But she said that she had to send her son to heaven and herself to hell. And that's what she believed. She believed that she was the Antichrist And once she died, then there would be 1,000 years of peace here on earth. Now, her name was Marie Moore, and she did this horrific action in Castleberry, Florida. She thinks she's the Antichrist. You don't get that kind of feeling or information from sitting at the house. You get it from a church. You get it from the Bible, possibly. You get it from people that are teaching this sort of thing. When a woman or anyone kills their child, is called filicide. It's Filicide. That's the proper name for it. And startling statistics show that every 3 days a woman will kill her child here in the United States. Every 3 days. It's something that I can't even
wrap your mind around.
Right. Can you fathom it?
No.
Well, next week we're going to show the video for those of you that can tolerate watching it, just to show you that this is a true story. This is a family that seemingly was messed up due to a woman thinking that she had to send her child to heaven and herself to hell so he would be all right. She could make things right by bringing peace on earth to everyone because she was the Antichrist. Now, was she mentally disturbed to start with? I believe so in this case. She had tried to commit suicide in this very gun range, I believe, 6 or 7 years prior. Why she could have even gone back is another thing. This has so many different facets to it. She also had several DUIs, and I think there's a law or that you can't even handle a gun in a gun range if you've had that. But here she is going in, renting a gun, 2 guns. Her and her son have a good afternoon, and she blows his brains out. And I say in the name of religion, but she was awfully mentally ill, no doubt.
Right.
Now, everybody knows the story of Andrea Yates. Monica, give us a little bit of a background.
Hold on. My phone was on the wrong thing. Andrea Yates was born on July 2nd in 1964 in Houston, Texas. And she'd had a history of postpartum depression and psychosis, had been in and out of doctor's offices and hospitalized and treated with different antipsychotic drugs and different things, and from time to time would have issues with a lot of depression and not feeding her children, and before she had her last child, she was advised that she didn't need to have any more children, that it could only lead to more trouble. But her husband and her, she was raised a Catholic. Her and her husband ended up being associated with a minister, Michael Peter Woronecki, if I'm saying it right, who condemned their lifestyle, told them they were hypocritical Christians. Their children were doomed to hell because of their parents' sins, and they preached that married couples should have as many children as possible. So you have a woman who's already got mental issues, who's suffering from postpartum depression, and then you have a minister, and I'll tell you more next week about some of the letters and stuff that him and his wife were writing to her. But here you have a minister who's telling them that their children are going to hell, and encouraging them to have more children, as many as possible. So we've got a lot of factors at play here. Mm-hmm. She had just gotten out of the mental hospital. She'd been in there for 10 days, and then she had a follow-up visit with the doctor, who is a new doctor to her. She'd only seen him a couple times, and he told her to go home and think positive thoughts, but he told her husband that she should not be left alone with the children, and she was left alone with the children. Didn't take long because he left for work, and within an hour's time, he got a phone call. She had drowned her 3 sons, then her daughter, baby daughter, and then chased her oldest son, who figured out what was going on when he got to the bathtub and saw his sister laying in there, and ran from her, and she chased him down and then drowned him as well. So drowned her 5 children.
Well, you know what startled me when I read that is I think all normal children, like Kimberly, you have 3 children, and if, God forbid, you were in the bathroom and say Juliana was in the tub unresponsive and floating, I dare say that Christian would come in there and think right away that you had a hand in that. You know, that's right off the bat. I said something strange, that the child thought that right away when he saw the baby in the bathtub. Mm-hmm. You know, that the mother did it. What do you say, Kimberly?
I can't even imagine, but it makes me think that the child was already maybe even subconsciously afraid, and for him, you know, the first thought is, oh my God, Mom's killed my sister, and to run. Yeah. It seems to imply that maybe something had happened that I believe he was the oldest, Monica?
Yes.
The oldest, and
yeah.
I don't have been with her the longest, obviously, possibly had seen her go through depression with each subsequent sibling. So, I mean, it appears that way.
That's what my mind went to. What about you, Ruthie?
Yeah, that's what I think. He had seen her either in some of her depression, something she did or said that would make him afraid of her. And for a child to be afraid of a parent, that's terrible. It's
horrible.
Right. That's one of the worst things I think that could ever happen. And that's why the New Covenant group teaches so much about, you know, the love of God, Jesus, and how much he loves everyone. And we always say, would a good father do this? Would a good father do that? You know, and I don't know. You know, when you have great parents, and then you see other people born to parents that aren't great, I don't understand the roll of the dice there. You know, I don't. It's not fair. Yeah. It's just not fair, and I don't know who's to blame. I don't know how you reconcile that. Yeah. I don't.
Well, you know, one of the things that she said that she heard Satan's voice, and she spoke with Satan, and that she felt like she needed to kill her children, that they weren't developing correctly, that she was a bad mother, and that because of her sins, when she was going to hell, the children were going to go to hell.
But she didn't bother to kill herself. You know, if she's such a bad person, yeah. I don't.
Well, she felt like that she should get the death penalty from what the articles that I read said, is that she felt like that would be her punishment, is that she would get the death penalty because she'd killed her children. But she killed her children because if not, they would go to hell.
Right, but
yeah,
you know, if you have, not that it takes guts to kill a child, it doesn't. But you know, and I'm not advocating suicide. I know it sounds like it, but no. These people don't want to kill themselves.
She had tried to commit suicide. I think it was 2 or 3 times, and had been hospitalized against her will. And the thing is she'd been given medication to take home. But because she wanted to have children, and because she wanted to breastfeed, and all of these issues, she didn't take the medication.
Yeah.
And then the husband, you know, says that it was her illness that killed the children, not her, and that the medical profession failed her. Well, I'm sorry, but if your wife's not going to take the medicines the doctors prescribe, and you're allowing her to continue to have children when you know that it's not going to do anything but cause harm, and right. You're told not to leave the kids alone with your wife, and you leave the kids alone with your wife, I mean, he almost bears as much responsibility in this as her, I mean, I think, you know?
That's not a bad point.
I mean, he didn't drown the children, but he left an unstable woman alone with his kids, you know? And there's no way I'd leave a pedophile alone in a room with my children.
Yeah.
Here they had a woman who had tried to kill herself, wasn't feeding her kids, had just gotten out of the mental hospital 2 days before, or had just seen a doctor 2 days before, had just recently been released from a 10-day stay in a medical hospital, and you're told not to leave her with your children, but you think just even for a short time it's okay.
Ruthie, do you think, and this is just going to be an opinion, nothing, professional, I wouldn't think. Do you think if somebody really wants to commit suicide, they can do it?
Probably, yeah.
That's the way I feel. Like these attempts at suicide, I think if you really want to kill yourself, you can kill yourself. Usually, this is just an opinion. I have no professional degree in this area. Okay. If you can want to commit suicide, I think you can do it. I think you can.
If one way doesn't work, you try something else. I mean, you can botch a suicide, especially with a gun. But if you really wanted to die, it seemed like if something didn't work, you'd try something else till you got it right. Just an opinion.
Yeah, I believe that. Unless there, is a reason for her to be alive, which I can't imagine that, because then the reason is so she can commit murder against her children. And an article says that we have protected our children from death from auto accidents greatly. We've made great strides in that. We've instituted the use of seat belts. Now, when we were kids, when I was a kid, we didn't have seat. You didn't have to wear the seat belt.
Back of the pickup truck down the road.
Exactly, back of the pickup truck, you held on to the side, rode on the hood, rode in the back, did whatever. I mean, and that was probably foolish, but somebody came up with this thing. We're going to try to protect our children. They can use a seatbelt. We put childproof tops on medication bottles. We're trying to protect our children. How do you protect a child from their mother? And mothers kill children, so many more times over than a father does. And even when a father does, they say a mother is a party to it, usually, for most cases. So how do we stop women from killing their children? Because if you remember, this wasn't a religious thing, I don't believe, but it was a woman that drove her kids into the Hudson River just recently, like maybe a year or two something ago. Everybody said, oh, she was such a good mother. She was such a good mother, such a good mother. A good mother isn't just somebody that buys diapers and clothes and makes a meal and will play with you in the yard sometimes. There's more to being a good mother than that. But we don't have any safeguards, I don't think, for women who are on the verge of, mental illness or, as long as the children are clean, fed, whatever, we consider that a good mother. And honestly, I'd rather have a dirty little urchin running around than a child that's, neat as a pin and their mother is cuckoo.
Right.
Is religion making women cuckoo, or are these women just...
I think it helps.
I do too.
I mean, when you're being told by someone who you trust as a minister,
that's the problem here.
Like in this case, that you're evil and you're wicked, and in this article that I read, they were asking, what were your children doing that was sinful and bad behavior? They were eating too much candy. Well, first of all, they didn't go to the store and buy that candy.
Right.
Okay. And second of all, if you're any kind of parent, you can keep them from eating that candy. You throw it away, put it up high, lock it up. My kids get like candy once or twice a day, maybe, after a dinner meal or after lunch. And sometimes it's other things, fruit snacks or fruit, or, I try to encourage them to eat healthy, but I do let them have a treat, but it's not... that's not something I would consider bad behavior in the least. No. It's just,
You don't give a child a whole bag of candy and says, eat only one piece.
Yeah.
You give the child one or two pieces of candy, and you put the others up where they can't get to it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what a good parent does. Anything, you don't leave stuff down. You have your locks to go on your cabinets. There's so much now that is available to protect your children, and yet the one person that should protect them is not. And I don't know why neighbors or school. Well, of course, her children wouldn't have been in school, but I don't know why people in school, neighbors, people at church didn't notice. Why don't we notice these things? That something's a little off and check into it.
Yeah.
And the thing is,
Good
when
point.
she was taking medication and stuff, I believe the best results they had, if I remember the article I read with her, was like when she was using Halidol that they would prescribe her. And when she was taking that, she actually would go back to, because she was she'd gotten a scholarship. She was valedictorian. She was the captain of the swim team or something like that. She was on the honor society in school. And so the things that she loved to do, she'd gotten away from doing. She didn't swim anymore. She wasn't social anymore. And when she did have a couple times where she had been treated, she did go back to doing things she loved, and that could only be helpful to to her. But then what I started to say, and then I kind of got off on the candy thing. I mean, that was showing her crazy. To think that would be something that would be sinful in a kid. But when you're being told by a minister that they're going to hell, they're going to hell, going to hell, you're going to hell, and you're sending your kids to hell. She felt that she was a failure as a mother. She felt like that she could do nothing to save her children. Basically, one of the letters from the pastor's wife that she was that he was they were counseling her upon her husband's request, is that our time to save you is running out.
Wow.
And that you're condemning yourself to hell, the way you're living, and you're condemning yourself and your family to hell. And so, I mean, we all know hearing those kind of messages is nothing short of abusive. Yeah. And she's hearing this, whether she's spreading it on to her children or not, she's hearing this. And then she's already got these mental issues, and just,
we say that teaching hell is child abuse. Kimberly, is teaching hell adult abuse too?
It's abuse, period. Yes. It's, especially a woman who's obviously mentally unhinged, to have that said to her, it's just abuse on top of, a mentally challenged person. I think one of our panelists on Sunday, I can't remember which one it was, said that a Bible in the hands of someone who's psychotic is a dangerous thing, because it can be used to justify their actions. And that's what happened. It seems to me this woman was already off, and she's being told you're going to hell, and she's reading in the Bible where children were killed, and I can see her, not necessarily see the logic, but I see a train of thought that having that in
how it just spiraled. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that she had, before the birth of her last child, which was Mary, the little girl, she had had a period of time where she was okay, and then had quit taking her medication. She had the baby, the postpartum depression stuff set back in. Her father died, and that was in March. And then as soon as her father died, things just started spiraling. She wouldn't talk, she wouldn't eat, she wasn't feeding the children. She was frantically reading her Bible. Just feeding herself with more and more of the stuff that people have put in there
to
that
control.
They believe that God said, and the stuff that they've put in there to control people and to make them live a certain way and do a certain thing and give a certain amount or whatever it may be. And this woman was not right. She needed to be on medication. She needed to be hospitalized. She needed to be watched, and none of that was done. And
from what I read a while back when we did our first show on this that never got to air, it seemed like Andrea was okay. You know, she excelled in school. She was smart, I think, and like I say, always I'm making this up, but I think she was going to go to be a nurse. I mean,
Yeah, she got a nursing degree.
yeah, I mean, she was a brilliant young lady, and she was successful. And then I don't know if she meets this guy, and then this minister, and you know, things started snowballing worse for her. And I'm not saying she wasn't mentally ill. A jury came back with guilty first with a capital punishment, I think. Then they reversed it and said she was mentally ill and insane. And but
Well, I think a lot of it, she probably had some mental illness maybe that was below the surface that nobody
be.
knew about. And then a lot of women that do have this postpartum depression, it's different from the postpartum psychosis, I guess, that can happen. And that's more rare, but it happened, and she ended up having this and was treated, but, you know, not immediately. And part of the problem is that she never talked about having these hallucinations and commands and being told
Right.
that Satan was talking to her and telling her to do things and telling her to hurt herself and telling her to hurt her children. You know, I mean,
Right.
when you're not forthcoming, how can you truly get all the help that you need either?
Right.
right,
So,
I mean, ladies, and this is garden, you know, armchair quarterback. I don't think that postpartum depression. I don't think you hear the voice of Satan, or you don't. You know, you're in another realm of mentally challenged. Like Kimberly said, you don't hear Satan. You don't. It's not religiously themed. Your postpartum depression, as far as I know. Ruthie, did people in your day and age have postpartum depression, or did y'all call it that?
I don't know. I never had it, so
Yeah.
I don't have any. I'm not saying I'm better. It's just that
No.
I think it's caused by a chemical reaction, partly a hormonal and this type of stuff, and that's what causes it. And some people have a better immune system or something, so that they are able to fight that better, and that would cause you to think differently, but not necessarily. I don't think it would make you think about killing or anything like this. Like I say, you would probably just want to kind of be by yourself and let somebody else take care of everything, and just leave me alone for a while.
Right.
But there's medicine for it, so.
True, very true. Kimberly, have you ever heard of anybody with this that heard the voice of Satan and exhibited these symptoms?
I've never met anyone that specifically told me that. I've known people with postpartum depression. I wasn't diagnosed with postpartum depression, but right after my first child was born, I started. It's hard to describe, okay? But I would feel like I was going to do something that would hurt my baby. But I didn't want to hurt my baby. But I felt like I might hurt my baby. But I didn't want to. And it's a very strange. And even when you're telling yourself this is not rational, I'm not going to hurt my baby, it's just an overwhelming emotional thing. I was fortunate to have a wonderful mother-in-law and a wonderful husband that I could go to and say, hey, I'm feeling really weird. Can you hold on to the baby for a minute till I kind of calm down?
Yeah.
And I had trouble nursing him at first once. And honestly, the first child I ever held was my son. So maybe some of it wasn't necessarily postpartum anything, is just an inexperienced, frightened mother.
That's what it sounds like.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of these women don't have the ability to come out and say, hey, I'm scared, because they're scared someone may take their baby, or say, hey, I need help, because there's no one to turn to.
Right.
I'm seriously doubting Andrea Yates' husband would have helped her with the babies. I'm just purely speculating, but
Sure.
if he's not going to make sure she's taking her meds, I'm not seeing that he's going to be all that helpful.
Right.
in
And
other
if
areas.
he continues to, I don't want to blame him for getting her pregnant, but I mean, there's something he could do.
Takes two.
Right.
Yes, it
and
does.
you know, honestly, if I were the man, I was like, sister, I am getting this thing clipped. We're not having any more babies. Put my foot
But
down.
they followed their religious leader who told
Yeah.
them to keep multiplying and being
That's
fruitful.
true. That is true.
And that's Catholic too, isn't it,
Yeah.
Monica? Not to prevent pregnancy. You can't prevent pregnancy.
Well, she was Catholic,
Previous.
so
before
this
she
would
was married.
follow along probably with
Yeah,
her teachings
so
as when she
yeah,
was
I mean,
younger.
probably that was like, yeah, well, that's what I was taught in Catholicism, even though they told her Catholicism was evil, and
Okay.
Yeah, you know, anyways, I mean, they preached against it and everything, but she probably had that in her mindset that she shouldn't do anything to prevent pregnancy, and then you have this minister telling you, have as many children as possible, and she was just going to keep going, I guess, but I guess 5 was her limit.
Well, I'm not going to talk about people that have a lot of children because I have some good friends of they have a lot of children and they don't fit this mold, but
Right.
I think, my opinion, you know, I'll keep that one to myself. My opinion to
Yeah, I mean,
myself.
there's nothing wrong with people having a lot of children. I mean, you can have 40 children if you can handle them and you don't have issues that lead you to one flew over the cuckoo nest. I mean, we know people that have had a lot of children. And
Yeah, they're the exception to the rule.
Yeah.
In my opinion,
Right.
they're the exception to the rule. You know, personally, I think if you have a lot of children, you're going to have a lot of problems, and they're not all going to get what they need. I really believe that. And but they are the exception to the rule. You know, they are, and it's miraculous to me, and I stand in awe of them. But I'm not for people having a bunch of kids that are going to suffer the consequences because you think you're virile or womanly and spit them out. I don't agree with that.
I think responsible parents will stop if they see that one more child would really stretch their finances or their health or something like that. A responsible couple will put an end to it if it's going to cause those kind of problems. They're not going to keep bringing children into the world if they can't take care of them and provide for them. They're not going to just keep having them and let them live in rags and eat scraps. I mean,
Right.
the responsible parents don't do that.
Right. And if you can afford them, go for it. You just go
Right.
for it.
kind of off topic, but I think y'all are going to be kind of floored. I know I was. Then again, maybe not. I was talking with a former teacher from my high school and a friend that I've made who went to high school. She was a senior when I was a freshman, and I actually know her brother-in-law graduated with him. And we were having a conversation, and the teacher from my high school was saying that she knew she was ready to retire when certain things started taking place, and she was witnessing these things, and it was just blowing her mind. But she said that she was talking about the teen pregnancy, and I said, well, you know, that was rampant when I was in school. I remember my freshman year walking into school, and girl on the right was pregnant, girl on the left was pregnant, and I'm thinking, don't drink the water. I remember my mom saying she would never drink the water in Louisiana because both times she went to Louisiana, she got pregnant. So I'm thinking, don't drink the water, don't drink the water. But she said, but it's not just them getting pregnant on accident. There are people's parents that when their daughter becomes like sophomore, junior year, they tell her to get pregnant and have her get pregnant, inspect her to get pregnant on purpose so they can get a check.
What?
Oh my God.
Money, baby money. There's crazy money and baby money.
Oh
Yeah,
my God.
I had heard that, but I didn't know if it was true
I
or
mean,
not.
I was sick. I was sick to my stomach upon hearing that. I mean, you know, it's just
I have never.
parents making their teenage child get pregnant and expecting their teenage child to get pregnant so that they can get another check in their house. Get the
Oh
baby
my
money.
gosh.
Yeah.
That's almost like
That's
that
a-
rabbi last week. Mom was like, "What?"
Yeah.
Oh man.
All right, Kimberly, let's hear about your winner here.
Okay, this was Deanna Langley, and honestly, she broke my heart. She had no history of any type of mental illness. She had no history of violence toward her children or toward anyone else. She was not on any medication. Her brother-in-law was pastor of her church. She was heavily involved in her Assembly of God church. She was in the choir. And the only indication that there was a problem was about a week before she took the lives of her children. Her sister-in-law noticed that she had stopped going out. She stopped going out of the house, and she was either at church or she was at home, and if she was at home, she was reading her Bible. And her sister-in-law thought it was strange. Well, all of that time, she had been having these thoughts that God was telling her to kill her children, and she didn't want to. She loved her children, and she kept telling God no. And every time she told God no, he told her that she had to kill them more violently. And so she's feeling like if she continues to tell him no, then she's going to have to do something horrible to them. And she didn't want to kill them in the first place, but if she had to kill them because God said so, she wanted to at least kill them mercifully. So apparently she didn't open up like Monica said earlier too and say, hey, I'm hearing voices and it's scaring me. But she said she kept seeing signs her children were playing with rocks, and so she felt like she had to stone them. And that is what she ended up doing. She stoned her 18-month-old baby. And when he cried out, her husband came to see what was wrong. She hit the child again. The child stopped crying. And it was the middle of the night. I guess he didn't know what she was doing. She told him it was okay, so he went back to bed. And then she stoned the other two outside and then called 911 and turned herself in. But she didn't think they were going to hell or she was going to hell. She just believed that God was telling her to do this, and every time she refused, he would tell her to do it more violently. And she said that she and Andrea Yates would be the prophets of the new world. She felt like the world was ending and that she had to get her house in order, and that she and Andrea Yates were the prophets of the new world.
Well, they are something of the new world, but
not the ordinary world I want to live in.
But
it was heartbreaking to me that that she obviously knew that. Well, she obviously didn't want to kill her. She didn't think her children were evil. She just seemed so lost and confused and just felt like she had to do this. And it's just sad. It broke my heart.
And she did it on Mother's Day weekend. Yes. I mean,
that's correct.
And the way I put the spin on it, I guess, myself, is she attributed these actions to Abraham. How Abraham kind of offered up his child, allegedly to kill him as a test. God said, Abraham, take your son Isaac and kill him on this altar. And so she thought, well, if that's, and this is me thinking it, if that's good enough for Abraham, I'll be obedient too. And I think one of the kids, they were playing with a stick or something in the yard before this happened, and she thought, well, maybe I'm supposed to spear them. Mm-hmm. And then they started, like Kimberly said, playing with rocks and whatever, and she said, well, maybe I need to stone them. And she wanted to be obedient to the voice of God. And I guess if she actually heard a voice, I don't know what crazy people hear, if they really hear a voice or they think they hear I don't know. But one of the saddest things when I read the story about a year ago, and I think her name was it Dina Laney or something like that. She lured the two. I want to say one was 7, one was 9 or something.
It was 6 and 8.
6 and 8. But, out of their beds, they're still in their pajamas, and took them out in the yard. And she killed one of them, hit him with a stone, and then she drug his body over into this little garden patch area. The other kid, it seemed like he realized too what was going on. She bashed his brains in, and but this little garden area had one of those little cute garden stones in it, and I think it said something like, love grows here, and that's where she, committed this religious act, and we can't get around that. Mm-hmm. We can't get around it, Ruthie.
Well, anybody that teaches that kind of stuff to people, and then the person goes out and does that, they're just as guilty of the sin, of the crime, as the person who committed it. If you're teaching people that God thinks it's okay to kill people, then you're as guilty of the murder as the person who committed it.
I really agree a lot with that. I really do.
Right.
Because you don't know who your audience is really. You don't know if somebody's on the cusp of right. just, battling mental illness. And as Kimberly related, she didn't really have any signs or history or anything. This was just a pure act of wanting to obey God, and kill her children.
And it really floors me, because we've had several people that have been in house here and said they hear the voice of God and God speaks to them and they have conversations, and that even if they don't hear the voice of God, but the fact that if God spoke to them and told them to do something because of what's written in a book, that they believe, that they've been taught is 100% the Word of God, that they would do the things, like commit infanticide, kill whole nations of people if they had the ability to do it, to do and to honor what their Father in heaven told them to do.
Yeah, like the young lady that was here, and I asked her if there's a community in our town called Bellevue, and I said, if God told you, since you hear the voice of God, if God told you to go to Bellevue and take out a whole family of people in this one house, would you do it? And she said she would do it.
Yeah.
And
I mean, she basically, from what I remember her saying, was that she didn't think God would ever ask her to do anything like that. But what it boiled down to is, if she really believed it was God, she would. And she also related a story about how she just kind of gave up her children because God told her to.
Right.
I don't know too many mothers who, if they heard the voice of anybody saying you need to give up your children, would do so.
Exactly.
So I don't think it's a far leap to say, hey, I hear the voice of God and he's telling me to do this, and this is really against everything within me, but I'm going to do it. Mm-hmm. Hey, God told me to off somebody. Hey, guess what? I'm going to do it.
I'm going to do it.
No.
Well, next week we're going to come back with some more stories about women who commit filicide, and also what psychologists and psychiatrists are saying about these women that have religious delusions. That's what they're calling it, and that's what I believe it is. Yeah. Let's just cut to the chase. That's what it is. And
we got another term we say too, but
BSC.
You can text us and we'll let you know what that is.
I learned it from my daughter-in-law. How sad is that? But we are going to come back next week, so stay tuned for part 2 of women who killed their very own children.